Well, it might actually happen. It might actually happen. We may have the very first Marvel movie that is rotten. Now, I don't know how they'll actually rank this. It might drop below a 60 and they'll still call it certified fresh because Rotten Tomatoes is not actually a accurate representation. To me, even if, most people see 61 and they think, oh, this is a 61% average review of 6.1 out of 10. But that's not actually how Rotten Tomatoes works. What 61% is means that 61 out of 100 reviews were barely positive. Or they could be all 5 out of 5s, for example. So if you had anything over the bare minimum, so as an example, from how I understand how it works, you could have 100 reviewers all giving a movie a 5.1 out of 10, which would be like a 51%, brutally bad, right? But Rotten Tomatoes would call that 100% certified fresh, from how I understand it. And the Eternals is slipping. It saw 61% the other day, bumped up to 63. I woke up this morning and saw 61 again. So basically, with only 100 reviews in, I think it's safe to say that it's very likely that this is going to drop into the rotten category. The new reviews have basically all been negative. Peter Travers, for example, positive review. AMovieGuy.com, Leo Bradley writes, in many ways, Eternals is not a Chloe Zhao problem as much as it's an MCU problem. I'd agree with that. After the lights came back on, my first thought was, is where comic book movies have jumped the shark. Emily Wheeler of Movie Ops writing, certainly a revamp, even if it doesn't prove to be a particularly refreshing one. You see Jeremy Yans saying, in the end, the movie was reliably entertaining, generally speaking. The MCU is, but the concept of the Eternals is a lot more interesting than the execution. But for whatever reason, that doesn't sound like a positive review, does it? But it is scored as one. Probably because they give it like a 5.1 out of 10. Vanyaland. It's ugly, charisma-free, dour, overlong, exposition-heavy, patronizing, and worst of all, it has none of the heart even fainted at by the least successful films within the MCU canon. Film Creek Central writes, it's pretty clear that Zhao's empathy for unaffected performers rambling and lingering magic hour landscapes has won the day, 1 out of 4. Dave Pullen writes, here's a list of things not to do if you want to make a Marvel movie that will not be mocked until Tony Stark returns to life. These are all those were the new reviews that rolled in yesterday. Now, again, this is an interesting case because it's just critics. And I've said before that, I haven't seen the movie yet. I will make sure I watch it because I have been, covering it in a generally negative light, or covering the news around it that's been negative. So I think it's only fair that I see it. And just like with Shang-Chi, admit if I'm wrong. It might be a great movie. If you look at movies like Venom, are generally hated by critics, but the fans love it. And ultimately, that's who's supposed to love it. So maybe, these critics hate it, but maybe the fans will love it. But it seems like the pressure is actually starting to get to some of the cast and crew. As Kumail Nanjiani suffered a little bit of instant regret, tweeting out, taking a jab at fans and viewers who didn't like the movie, and then quickly deleting it. It's the exact same thing that the main actor from Shang-Chi did, because he even used my thumbnails, right? Saying that the movie would tank, and then he said it didn't tank, and admittedly it didn't. It wasn't a runaway success. It's not like it made $1 billion, but it didn't lose money, which is good for Marvel. Now, Kumail Nanjiani responds to critics of LGBTQ Eternals characters, we're upsetting the right people. And again, where is all this feedback? Where is all this negative? We saw a few screen grabs. Nothing that I would call like vile or like anti-LGBTQ. Do they exist? I guess I don't know, because IMDb scrubbed about 1,000 reviews. Now, every movie that comes out gets a lot of reviews, in particular at IMDb, before it's ever seen by anybody. It's just the way it goes. I think, when Rotten Tomatoes changed their system and made it to where you had to be like a verified viewer through either purchasing a ticket on their app or proving it some other way, I actually 100% support that. I don't like review brigading. I don't think it's good for anybody. Now, I do think people should be able to leave a review if, let's say, an actor and actress or something like that, they say something vile and they want to. It's the only way we really have. It's the only recourse we really have as viewers. So it's kind of, I'm torn. Yes, I want to see verified reviews of people that actually saw the movie. That's more helpful in me choosing if I want to actually see the movie. However, for me personally, and I don't know, you tell me in the comment section down below if, you where you're at. But for me, it's also helpful for me to see if one of the actors or actresses of the director or the producer of the movie, called people neckbeards and incels or something like that. I would want to know about that. Kumail Nanjiani isn't concerned about criticism regarding the LGBTQ representation in the movie Marvel's Eternals. Again, the examples I saw were like hardy har har, more woke trash from Marvel's. It wasn't like, ew, gay people. I didn't see any of that. I can't say for a fact it didn't exist because they deleted them all. But in all the articles talking about the negative feedback, I never saw anything that was in particular, really egregious. The actor responded to Marvel fans who allegedly left negative reviews of the film on IMDb before its release in theaters, according to the Direct. Some of the now deleted complaints and the negative reviews allegedly pertain to the change in Brian Tyree Henry's Fastos, who's now gay and he wasn't before, who's now the first, but who's not in the comics. This is what Marvel does. This is what Disney does. I still don't know. I still don't know or understand who these people are, how reductive you must think the LGBTQ community is, to where it's like, hey, there's somebody in this LGBTQ community in this movie. Here's my $20, Hollywood. I don't care how crappy the movie is. Apparently, these people must exist. 2 years ago, I would have said it's insanity that it just wouldn't, but the only other alternative is that Hollywood is willing to tank their own movie sales by focusing on the wrong things. I don't think that having representation in movies hurts sales. I think that representation in movies can't save a bad movie. I don't think that a sales point of seeing a 2 or 3 hour film should be that gay people are in it. I just don't. I don't think that works. But again, I could be wrong. I've never actually spoken to somebody who said, yeah, I paid $15 to see that movie because there's people that look like me in it. Or this movie was bad normally, but there were people that like to sleep with the same people I do, so I'm going to give it a better review. They can't be a huge group of people. Nanjiani, who also stars in one of the film's Eternals, tweeted a response to the news on Thursday that says, looks like we're upsetting the right people. Eternals opens November 5th, and he has now deleted the tweet. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that was deleted? Now, this is the same thing that Simu did, which I don't hate it. They're allowed, actors and actresses are allowed to defend themselves, from criticism. Now, Kumail didn't get any of this said criticism, not that I saw. But everyone's talking about it. This is the original source of all that horrendous backlash that they got, right? The Direct, and they show 3 examples, and they're not even bad. Where's the vile? When you're telling me that people are evil and they're leaving evil comments, and I want to see something actually evil, not woke and mediocre. The Eternals is woke and mediocre by the critics' own admissions. There's no shortage of critics that included in the review, it's so stunning and brave that there's 2 men and with a child in this movie, 4 out of 10. That's the critics' own words, not necessarily that of the fans. If Woke and Mediocre would be given a medal, this would win. Come on, Marvel. This was cheap even for you. Such a terrible movie like this could only be done with Angelina Jolie and her style of making amendments to movies. Not watchable at all. What? Where exactly is the hardcore criticism of the representation in the movie? The movie sucks and it ticks all of Hollywood's woke boxes. It does. And I haven't seen it, so I can't say it sucks. But the critics sure seem to think so. Now, why did he delete the tweet so quickly? Because I'm sure that people didn't care for that. Because what happens is you're basically projecting that, well, if you didn't like this movie, then you must have a problem with the LGBTQ community, which is obviously baloney sausage and doesn't track even in the slightest. It doesn't work like that. Like, are you calling the critics who didn't like it also, are you saying that they had a problem with it? Or are you reacting to one article that you didn't even read with, no, look, I'm going to be honest. So, okay, let's look at this. By the way, they always forget this. Kumail Nanjiani didn't have a problem with the 934 people giving the movie a 10 out of 10 without seeing it. He only had a problem with the 450. So twice as many people reviewed the movie as a 10 out of 10 without seeing it. They don't have a problem with that. They have a problem with the 400 people that said it sucked. All of these reviews without seeing the movie are less than relevant. But, I don't see, again, where all the quotes are, and I would disavow that. Like, if there's some like genuinely vile thing about representation, that's not okay. But like laughing at that, the fact that Hollywood cares more about that than making good movies, which I firmly believe, that's not phobic. That's just the truth. I hope you enjoyed this video. I can't wait to see the box office for this movie. We'll talk to you again real soon.